There will be a sword that pierces your own soul too. Man, I don't want a word from God like that, right? And it says she went off and pondered, right? Because she's the ponderer. I wonder what a sword through my own soul would mean, right? So time goes by and the wise men show up and it says that he was a toddler. So Matthew 2:11, if you didn't know he was a toddler, Matthew 2:11 says, when the wise men had come to the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother and fell down and worshipped him. So it says young child. Young child, some of the translations say toddler. It has to do with the Greek words that it is a young child, and fell down and worshipped him. When they had opened their treasuries, they presented to him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So we know that gold is the gift that you bring for a king, frankincense is the gift that you bring for a priest, and myrrh is for people's debts, for burial. Okay, so there's Mary with her little toddler at this time. Wow! These wise men came from a long way away. They were foreigners, like way totally foreigners. They looked like foreigners. They had on very elegant clothing. They were very wealthy. Most likely there were like 200 people going with these kings. It's not like you picture the 3 wise men on a donkey. These were like super duper astrologers, people that were very wealthy, very high up. They probably went with a lot of people. So they came and they present these gifts to your baby. And you're like, wow, gold, wow, we're rich, yay, right? Frankincense, awesome, the priest's gift, wow, this is super cool. Myrrh, do you know that in this culture, myrrh is for a burial, for death? Why are you bringing my kid a death gift? You know, my kid's like 2. Do you know something that I don't know? Like, it would be very, very strange as a mother to receive a gift like that. So then we know that Joseph has a dream and that they have to escape because Herod is killing all the 2-year-olds and under, and so they have to go to the land of Egypt. So what is their gold and frankincense for? To provide for them in the time when they are in Egypt. They have to go, they have to hide out, they have to be foreigners in foreign land. Egypt was not well inclined at this time to the Hebrew people, so they were probably not going to be able to find any kind of job when they went there. So this money provided for the time that they were in hiding. Okay? And they actually did have to hide. You would think that, oh, God's got control of everything. I wouldn't have to hide, right? But the angel came and told them to hide. Then the angel came and told them that it was okay and time to go back to Nazareth. And I wonder how she felt about going back there, right? It's hard to face those things. Like a teenage pregnant girl to go back to her home after she's been away for, 5-10 years. It takes a lot of courage to go back there and to face your family again, to get reacclimated into the place again. But she did do that. And then we move on to like the middle portion of Mary's story. So we know that Mary had this calling to raise God's son. Dude, that's scary. And I don't know how to be like, oh yeah, I'll raise God's son. What would happen if you did something wrong, right? It's God's son. Oh, so anyway, they go back and they start their family too. They have a lot of other kids. So in Mark 6, verse 3, it says, is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us? And they were offended by him. So let's count how many siblings or half-siblings Jesus had. Are not the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, Simon? Are not his sisters? We know that there are at least 2 here with us. Okay, so Mary and Joseph had another 6 children afterwards. I love this part of it because it's a blended family, right? It gives the hope for those that do get divorced and then get married and the kids come from the different sides, because here's this blended family. Joseph is adopting Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And now they have half brothers and sisters. So you think about what their household life would be like, right? I can imagine me as Mary saying, "Hey Simon, why can't you act like your older brother Jesus?" Can you imagine? Oh yeah, Jesus is always doing the right thing. Why can't you act like them? Why can't you do that? I'm sure that some of that went on. So then we see again when Jesus is 12, he stays at the temple, right? So what they would do when they went down to Jerusalem for these 3 feasts, they would go in big caravans for safety. So they'd go with their extended families and stuff like that. So he was probably with John the Baptist.
Yeah.
They're cousins, they're the same age, they're probably routing off together, you know? They have a huge caravan of people going to Jerusalem, coming back together. So they probably thought, well, he's 12, you know, he's probably with one of the relatives over there or whatever. But can you imagine the panic? The panic, not just that, where is my child? Where is God's child? I have lost God's child. And she's running around with Joseph, and it takes 3 days to find him. Oh boy, man, I am panicked when I lose my kids for like 1 minute in the store or something. 3 days, and it's not just your child, it's God's child. I would be so wound up. And they finally find Jesus, and she's watching, and she can see that they're having this great discussion. He's asking these great questions and stuff. And her and Joseph come up, why would you treat us like that? What are you doing? Don't you know that you're supposed to be with your family? And Jesus gives this answer, don't you know I have to be about my Father's business? He's a little punk still, right? He's a little kid. And it says, and then she pondered all these things in her heart, you know? I don't know what happened to Jesus, but it says that afterward he was obedient unto them, right? Because, I don't know, he might have gotten in trouble, you know? Even though he's sinless, it doesn't mean that his parents knew what was going on. I'd be pretty mad if my kid just ran out for 3 days. Hey. And the next time we see her show up is at the wedding.
Yeah.
The wedding, okay? So Jesus is grown now. He's already been in the desert. He's already been baptized. And he already has a few disciples coming with him. And they show up at the wedding. And I want you to hear this because this is super important. The father and the mother call out the calling of their children. When Jesus was baptized, God the Father revealed himself with his voice, right? He said, this is my son, with whom I am well pleased. His mother also was very important in bringing out the calling of him. Because they're at the wedding, there's no more wine, and she says, Jesus, it's time. It's time for you to do a miracle. He says, no, it's not time. And she says, yep, I'm Mama, it's time. And so he does his first miracle. As a mom, as someone in authority, in your small groups, a spiritual mom, a spiritual big sister, you can call out the calling of your kids too. Okay? That's amazing. I wonder when he would have done his first miracle, what they were calling it out, right? But she got to partake in the calling out of Jesus' calling upon his life.
Yeah.
Now it's time for you to do a miracle, Jesus. Now it's time for you to show off that you are God, right? So time goes on, and Jesus is out teaching with his disciples, and all these things are going on. And Jesus' family at home is saying, what's going on? Who does he think he is? What in the world? And it says that they thought he was out of his mind. His brothers and sisters thought he That's what it says in Mark 3:21. Mark 3:21. It says, when his family heard about this, of him doing his miracles and teaching and all this stuff, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. His brothers and sisters thought he was crazy. Crazy. So, she's probably in the middle, right? Because she knows certain things about her son. She knows that Gabriel showed up to her before she ever got pregnant and said, this is the Son of God. She heard Simeon and she heard Anna's prophecy. She was there with the shepherds. She was there with these supernatural dreams when they went to Egypt, when they came back. But she was also with Jesus every day of his life, and most days of his life were normal. He was human. He slept. When he woke up, his hair was all messy. He needed to brush his teeth too. It isn't sinful, all these things, right? He had to use the bathroom too because it's human. It's not sinful, right? So they had been with him day by day. And so I'm sure she felt this very big tug in the family, trying to keep the peace between his other half-brothers and sisters, and just the whole dynamic. So we know that they went and they tried to get him to come out of the house, right? And they said, Jesus, your mother and your brothers and your sisters are here. And he said, who are my brothers and mothers? Everyone who does the will of God. Man, they might have gotten offended, right? I'd be like, I'm your mama. Don't you know I'm your mama? What do you think he's saying? All these women are your mama. I'm your mama. But as we go on, we see it again in John 7. So this is farther in Jesus' ministry that it says, John 7:5 says, even his own brothers did not believe him. So we didn't hear anything about Joseph after age 12 of Jesus' life. So he probably died during Jesus' teenage years, right? And that Jesus was the carpenter then, right? He would have taken care of his family. He would have supplied all their needs, provided for them, done all those kinds of things. But now, as they're grown, they don't believe that he is the Messiah because they are too close to him, right? Too close. Okay. So she knows all these things. She has all these things pondering. But there's a lot of rift in her family. And that's hard as a mom, because a mama just wants everybody to be around the table, little gathering of the hens, to everyone to be happy. This is my family, we're together, right? But there is definitely a rift happening between Jesus and his brothers and sisters, and there she is. Okay?
Do you think that Joseph and Mary told the siblings? Like, what happened?
I don't know. Do you? I think they do. Eventually the brothers and sisters get saved. We'll get there. But I don't know. It would have been helpful maybe. Maybe not. Your brother is the savior of the world. That would be a weird thing to hear. Okay, so then we get to the end of Jesus' life, right? Mary is there while he is hanging on the cross. She is watching her son, her firstborn, die. This is part of her life's calling, to have a child that dies. That is so painful. So painful. I can't even imagine what that would be like to actually watch it happening, right? To see the sky get cloudy, to be there when there's the earthquake, to see him say, it is finished, and to give up his spirit, Oh, the pain that's involved in that, I just can't even comprehend. But before he dies, he does see out in the crowd that his mama's out there, right? And he says to John, he said, John, this is your mom. Mom, this is your son. I think it's really weird too that Wyatt didn't marry Joseph with one of the other brothers. I don't know. I just don't know that part of their culture. But it said from that day on, she went home with John. And when I was in Turkey, they took us to a house that they believe that she lived in. It was this little stone house. It was cute. I don't know. I don't ever know when I'm traveling if these things are commercialized because people want to know where Mary lived, or if it's might actually be, right? Because when you go to Israel, man, it's commercialized. You can go right here to the Baptist church, and in the middle of the Baptist church, they'll have this altar thing, and they'll say, "This is where Jesus turned water to wine." And then if you go out of the church, next door is the Catholic church, and you go in the Catholic church, and the Catholic church has their own. They say, "This is where Jesus turned water to wine." And there's like 2 blocks of them, and that's for all sorts of events in Jesus' life. So who knows? Okay. So the gruesomeness of what was going on the cross in Isaiah 52:14, it says, there were many who were appalled at him. His appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So you couldn't even tell that he was really human. He looked like hamburger meat. So that is what she watched and she experienced and she mourned through this. But as we know, that wasn't the end of Jesus' story. But I do think it's very interesting from Mary's perspective, from the call on Mary's life, that she was supposed to live through this, right? Watching her son die. Okay, so then he's resurrected. Man, that's exciting! And he starts appearing, to his family. It says that one of the people that's listed is James, his brother. You know, people are saying, "Your son's alive again, I saw him, da, 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 da." That would be weird and wild and totally cool. It's like the fruition of all of those great prophecies, right? But she had also stood through the sword piercing her soul when he died, right? Okay, so then at the day of Pentecost, we know what happened on the day of Pentecost. In Acts 1:14, it says, "There they all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication with the women, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers." So I don't know what you imagine in your mind on the day of Pentecost. A lot of people just imagine the 12 disciples there or something. Yeah. There are a lot of people there, and Mary's one of them. Mary was one of the first tongue talkers there were on planet Earth, and his brothers were too. The Holy Spirit there, and they also spoke in tongues that day. And from that day on, his brothers and a lot of them were in ministry, right? Yeah. So we know that they became a family of ministry because James became the leader of the church in Jerusalem, his brother. He wrote the book of James. Jude was his brother that wrote the book of Jude. Mary was at these churches with John, mainly in Ephesus and in Turkey. And it would have been super cool to go meet and talk to her about, "Oh, is your little boy like when he was a little boy," right? Why do you think that we have Luke 2, where we know all the things about Jesus' birth and the things leading up to the birth? Because Mary had talked. Probably Luke had interviewed her, right? She was part of the testimony of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So then think about after and ongoing. Okay? So she is in heaven, and she's Jesus' mama. That's kind of fun, isn't it? I think that would be super cool. I'm sure that in heaven, things are different, right? Because we're all one family and stuff. But still, she's the one that raised him.
Yeah.
You know? I'm sure he puts his arm around her and says, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" You know? I'm sure they do. I'm sure that she's forever his mom. Forever. We know that when you get a child is an eternal gift from God. Because they're going to go to heaven, or they're going to go to hell. They're going to go to hopefully heaven with you, right? That you will be in eternity with your children. That's so cool. That's so cool. So who knows what Jesus and Mary did today up in heaven? Maybe they went eternity, Mary is there, Jesus' mom. And she is part of that great cloud of witnesses that looks down on us, that says you can do it, that says yes, there are ups, there are downs, there are ups, there are major downs, but it's totally worth it. You will be in eternity with us forever. She is our sister. Mary is our sister, and we get to talk to her about all the things about Jesus as a little boy. I want to know, because I think he might have been a little bit naughty. Not sinful naughty, but a little bit naughty. I think he probably had this goofy sense of humor and stuff like that. At least that's how I am imagining it. So one of the aspects of Mary's call is that she pondered and treasured things in her heart. It says it over and over that she was thinking about these things, right? When the shepherds came, she treasured these things up and she thought about them often in her heart. So that is very much like meditating, right? When God speaks to you a real live word, you can't just let it go. You have to write it down. You have to make a voice memo, whatever you need to do so that you can hear it, so you can ponder it, so you can think about it, so that it can still be alive in you as the years go on. Right? Have you received a word from the Lord? Yes. Have you had a prophecy? Have you had something in your life? Well, you have to keep it alive, and that's on you. You know? A lot of times we get a word from the Lord and we don't, maybe we think about it for a couple months and then we kind of forget about it. It just dies away. But she was a ponderer. She was always thinking all these things in her heart. Okay. So, Mary had a very, very interesting life. The call on her life was very interesting, very much exciting, all the emotions of life. You can see that we see things from the end, right? But walking through some of those things would have been hard. There was always victory on the other side. There's always victory